Costco rakes in over $1.5 million in sales on opening day here in the Villages. UF Health wants to build a new emergency clinic on 301 in Oxford. A son of a couple in the Villages claims pancreas was impaled during an arrest attempt. Stonecrester allegedly attacks gate attendant guard who refused entry to a visitor. Villager finally settles with insurance company in wake of sinkhole damage. We have more on the story. More out of compliance homes and more DUIs. How many holes in Windsor Golf do we get this week? Letters to the editor. This and more coming up. Thanks everybody for coming to this week's The Villages News Updated. Let's get to it. Residents in the southern section of the Villages have demanded a change to anonymous complaint system. Community Development District 13 residents have been expressing their dissatisfaction with the anonymous complaint system, but the CDD 13 Board of Supervisors has been unable to respond to residents' concerns. The enforcement of deed restrictions is still under the developer, and the CDD 13 under state statute has not yet met the threshold in which it takes over enforcement of deed restrictions. Hint: there's two kinds of restrictions that you people don't even know about. You've got the outside deed restrictions, and then you have the inside deed restrictions that's enforceable only by the developer, such as children living in a home full time. Outside deed restrictions does not cover that. Just know what you're doing here. However, recognizing the passionate feelings that CDD 13 residents have about anonymous complaint, the developer elected to yield to the CDD 13 Board of Decisions about the future of anonymous complaints. Be careful what you wish for. CDD 13 includes the village of Bradford, Case and Hammock, Citrus Grove, Chitty Chatty, Hawkins, Richmond, St. Catherine, St. John's, as well as part of DeLuna and Hammock at Finney. There are 8,062 homes in CDD 13, which covers 2,231.8 acres. CDD 13 board met Thursday afternoon at Everglades Recreation Center and heard from residents who were both for and against anonymous complaints. Dennis Halloway of the village of Case and Hammock said he was aware of a case in which the bitterness over anonymous complaints had been fatal. The guy died of a heart attack, Holloway said. This is supposed to be a retirement community. The stress is killing people. I've been talking about this for a long time. Where you people been? So he even says it. This is supposed to be a retirement community. When was the last time they actually advertised that? When was the last time you actually heard anybody in the developer's office even say that in any of their commercials? They don't say it anymore.
Village's friendliest hometown.
Carol Wilfrey of the village of DeLuna said single residents like herself would be hesitant to lodge complaints. However, the majority of the people who lined up at the podium spoke out against residents who used the anonymous complaint system to harass neighbors. In the end, the board asked for a show of hands. The majority of the residents indicated they wanted a system in which those lodging complaints cannot remain anonymous and must provide a unit lot number so their residency in CDD 13 can be verified. The change should be effective August the 18th. Good luck to you all. Costco officials estimate that 7,000 customers spent $1.5 million on opening day at the new store in the Villages. Looking at the parking lot, they were probably right on the money. People were in line at 5:30 a.m. Wednesday at the new store, which opened at 8 a.m. at Buffalo Ridge Plaza. By 7:30 a.m., long lines of customers stretched down both sides of the store. The 700 parking spots at Costco were full. There were more than 100 golf carts parked on the grass. More cars spilled over into the parking lot of Hobby Lobby. Tim and Luana Nelson, who lives in the village of Denham, were pleased that the new Costco has opened in the Villages, and they have been members for more than 20 years. Tim Nelson was sold on Costco when he had purchased a small drone from Costco when he lived in Texas. When he first flew the drone, it would not respond to the controls and disappeared over a large lake near Dallas. I know that experience. He told his wife he was going to take the receipt along with the box control unit back to Costco. His goal was to get a replacement or a refund. His wife said there is no way that Costco would compensate him for the loss. Costco replaced the drone, and Nelson has been a loyal customer ever since. They have been traveling to the Costco's in Claremont. That's where most of them have been going here, down to Claremont. Sherry Johnson of Wildwood, along with her daughter Taylor, braved the crowd to fill the grocery cart to the brim. Johnson said she loves Costco because they have everything you need at great affordable prices. Beb Garcia of the village of Winterfred was excited to be at Costco for the first time. She thought by the time she arrived at 8 a.m. that the lines would have gone down. On opening day, you know better. The parking lot was so full that I had to park at Hobby Lobby parking lot. It is a great day in the villages, she said. In addition to selling groceries and household goods, Costco will be selling American-built golf carts in
Florida's friendliest hometown.
Well, everybody got their Costco. University of Florida Health plans to build a freestanding emergency department on US 301 across from Oxford Oaks. Special Magistrate Lindsay C.T. Holt recommended approval of a comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning request for the project at a meeting Tuesday at the Wildwood Planning and Zoning Board. The City Commission could act on both later this month. Holt set a condition that the developer resolve a city attorney's concern about easement. That concern is expected to be resolved upon approval of the final plat for Preston Place Business Park. Owned by Preston and Pope LLC, the property is along 301 US 301, nearly a half mile south of County Road 466. A 14,211 square foot medical building is planned with an ambulance entrance. The emergency room is expected to serve 56 patients every 24 hours or a peak at 19 at a time with 10 exam rooms. The developer requested a waiver of the city's parking space requirements. A project on 1.4 acres would have 51 instead of 55 spaces with 5 handicap spaces. The number of spaces was calculated based on similar facilities in other areas. And yet, we still don't have a trauma center here in the villages, 160,000 strong and growing. A villager has finally settled with her insurance company in the wake of a sinkhole damage that has forced her to vacate her home. Janine Dietrich, who owns a home at 5986 Scardino Street in the Glenda Villas in the village of Monarch Grove, provided an update on her situation when she appeared at a public hearing this week at the district government office at Brownwood. Dietrich's home had been condemned by the Sumter County and she is still not allowed to go onto the property. She announced that she has received a payment from her insurance company and plans to begin remediation work at the home as soon as she receives clearance from the county. Sinkholes first opened up in August of 2023 on Scardino Street. The city of Wildwood was responsible for repairing the sinkholes. Roads were torn up, orange barricades became the norm, and residents had to pack up and relocate to a hotel. In October 2023, another sinkhole opened up. In September 2024, yet another sinkhole was discovered at Dietrich's home on Scardino Street, and the home was tagged by Sumter County as uninhabitable. That has to happen for your sinkhole insurance to kick in. Dietrich was called before the special magistrate because a complaint had been lodged on May 29 about dead grass and weeds. You are kidding me. You neighbors are so sympathetic. She can't even get back on her property. She's got a sinkhole. She's living in a hotel. Her home she can't go in the house. And you want to bitch about weeds in her yard. Great neighbors you are. Special Master Terry Neal, a retired Lake County judge, recognized the complexity of the situation. Neal noted that Dietrich can't go on the property to remove the weeds or cut the grass. Neighbors who have previously expressed frustration about living near a sinkhole damaged home offered some sympathy. Jim Pedovic, who lives next door, said that Dietrich is caught in a catch-22 and has gone through hell. I agree. In the end, Special Master granted Dietrich 7 days to address the weeds and dead grass, but the clock won't start ticking until the county gives Dietrich clearance to go back on the property. Well, thanks for that. At least we got somebody with some common sense around here. And you people that complain about these silly things when something like this is going on, what the hell's the matter with you? Residents would bear the burden of enforcement of the rule barring children from living in the villages if the developer hands off that responsibility to the community development districts. There has been plenty of conversation in recent weeks about children living in the villages as a result of the developer's offer to cede to the CDDs the responsibility for the enforcement of the rule prohibiting anyone under the age of 19 from living in the villages for more than 30 days. This week, district government began offering a vision of how that enforcement would work if the CDDs took over the developer up on his offer. If a resident reported a suspected violation, the resident would be responsible for providing 31 days of evidence showing that for the calendar year. Notice I said for the calendar year. I go back to the original report when I said it should be updated, whoever reported it, because it was wrong. It's not 30 days. It's 30 days per calendar year. And somebody sent me an email saying that wasn't correct. It is correct. Someone under the age of 19 had visited or temporarily resided at a home. The resident making the complaint would also be required to sign a legal affidavit attesting to the child living in a home. I can tell you right now, this ain't going good. If the complaint provides sufficient evidence, community standards would send a letter to the suspected violator. If the violation continued and was not rectified by the letters, a public hearing would commence in front of the CDD board, which would essentially act as judge and jury. The complaint and the homeowner allegedly harboring underage children would be called to testify at the hearing. If the homeowner was found to have children in the home and did not remove the children from the home, that homeowner could face fines. If the fines go unpaid, a lien could be placed on the home. This ain't gonna work. Let's move on. CDD supervisor who heard the presentation on Friday immediately found it unrealistic. We will spend a lot of money enforcing a rule that is unenforceable, said CDD1 board chairman Rocky Hyder. We are going to have an extremely difficult time weighing the evidence unless there is an admission. CDD4 board chairman Cliff Weiner came to the same conclusion. It would be opening a can of worms, and it's going to be really, really expensive, Weiner said. CDD board chairman Don Deacon called it mission impossible. I agree with him. That way of doing it, you're putting all the responsibility on the homeowners here. We're paying you to enforce the rules. And if the developer don't want to, somebody's got to. I'm saying if you want to take somebody to court about anything, take the developer to court, forcing him to enforce these rules that he has set forth for the rest of us to follow. It's his responsibility. Here's a report here that I've talked about before about their complaint here. And I've warned people, I don't care what you spend. I've warned people about it. Apparently nobody watches my news much anymore, or they would very much understand what I'm talking about. So let's read this and you'll see what I'm talking about. Residents who paid a premium for their water view are upset about the conditions of the basin where they live in the villages. Barry Smith of the village of Palo Alto bought his home in El Largo in February. The sales brochure, which helped entice him to buy a home in that location, offered an idyllic picture of life on the water. But the reality has turned into an ugly nightmare. The pond has been covered with algae for months. We paid a lot of money for that house and that view, Smith said. It's starting to smell. It's disgusting. He and his neighbors spoke out this past week before the Community Development District 1 and 2 boards of supervisors at Savannah Center. The body of water straddles CDD 1 and 2. Villager John West, who lives in El Largo for more than 20 years. It looks like a swamp. It used to be beautiful. The maintenance of that lake has gone to pot, West said. A longtime resident, Bernie O'Donnell, agreed. It has looked beautiful for the most of 25 years that I have lived here. Something happened. The question is, what happened to create the problem? Well, if you go back, we reported how they have changed 2 or 3 different times contractors that manage the ponds and lakes for weed and algae control. That's what happened. Cleaning up the basin has been a challenge. The water is very hot at this time of the year, and fertilizer from nearby homes is running into the pond, fueling the growth of algae. That's probably true. District Property Management has tried numerous solutions. Last year, District Property Management decided to bring in carp to use the fish to munch away at the unwanted vegetation. The carp haven't made a dent yet. There are limits on the amount of chemicals that can be used in the body of water. There are chemical treatments planned for August 14 and 28. The district is also looking at bringing in a new pond maintenance contractor. It hasn't worked up to this point. It ain't going to work. because apparently these contractors either are limited on what they can do and the chemicals they can use and how much and so on and so forth, or they just simply don't know what they're doing. In a lawsuit filed against the Marion County Sheriff's Office, the son of a couple in the Villages claims that he was seriously injured and left in a coma after his pancreas was ruptured by a deputy who forcibly kneeled on his back and impaled his abdomen on a sprinkler head that was underneath him. Sean Sheehan filed a lawsuit in the 5th Judicial Circuit Court of Marion County in January 2024. In that initial filing, Sheehan made a claim for losses suffered from injuries he allegedly sustained during an arrest nearly 2 years prior. Sheehan is currently serving time in the Florida Department of Correction and is imprisoned at the minimum security Santa Rosa work camp. He is due for release in 2026. According to the complaint, in January 2022, Sheehan was pulled over by deputies while he was driving in Ocala. Sheehan, who at the time resided with his parents in the village of Mallory Square, claims he was ordered to exit his vehicle and to lie on the ground. As he was complying, Sheehan alleges that the deputy forcibly directed him to the ground in a grassy area that was covered with debris. After forcing Sheehan to the ground, the deputy allegedly kneeled on Sheehan's back, impaling his abdomen on a sprinkler head that was underneath of him. As a result of the alleged impalement, Sheehan suffered serious internal injuries. The complaint alleges that the situation grew rapidly worse and that Sheehan advised deputies and the EMT that he was seriously injured. Sheehan's complaints were ignored and he was booked at the jail. While in the Marion County Jail, Sheehan allegedly complained of pain and serious complications. He was ignored until he fell into a coma and was finally hospitalized. Well, now if that happened, that's wrong. Sheehan was comatose for 3 days and coded at least once. The lawsuit alleges that Sheehan discovered his pancreas was ruptured when the sprinkler head impaled him. Now, when you say impaled him, you mean actually stuck in his body? Because if that happened, a sprinkler head, we're talking about a sprinkler head that's probably that big around, in his body, he would be bleeding profusely outside of his body, covering his shirt or anything else he's wearing. I just can't imagine a police officer ignoring that, as the report says that they did. But I wasn't there. After the discovery, Sheehan was sent to the emergency surgery and was given a 5 to 10% chance of survival. He was hospitalized for 30 days and developed a hernia and requires additional surgeries as a result of the excessive force used and the complete disregard of his condition. That's lawyer talk for you right there. Sheehan's attorneys allege that the deputy acted in an unreasonable and excessive manner, given that their client was compliant and not resisting in any way. The deputy failed to appreciate the risk of injury to Sheehan and unnecessarily exposed him to that risk. Agents simply ignored Sheehan until he became comatose. Agents paid even minimal attention to Sheehan's obvious severe distress. He could have received appropriate care and would likely have avoided a severe sequel of his original injuries. In June of 2024, the Sheriff's Office filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit on the grounds that they could not be sued. Shortly after the motion was filed, Sheehan's attorneys filed an amended complaint renaming the defendant as Billy Woods in his official capacity as Sheriff of Marion County. In July of 2024, Woods filed an answer and affirmative defense in response to the amended complaint. In that document, attorneys argued that the amount of force used to effect an arrest were reasonable and necessary under the circumstances. In August of 2024, the Sheriff's Office offered a proposed settlement in that case. That proposal, which was not made public, was not accepted. Last month, Sheehan's deposition was scheduled to be taken by attorneys representing the Sheriff's Office. On July 25, Woods' attorneys filed a supplemental response to Sheehan's request for production. In the response, the sheriff's attorneys argued that the request for certain documents previously submitted by Sheehan's defense team was seen as overly broad and irrelevant.
A New York native,
Sheehan had a lengthy criminal history leading up to his arrest in 2022. I'm going to go through his rap sheet here real quick. In 2013, Sheehan was sentenced to house arrest in connection with a burglary at Hacienda Hills Country Club. In November of 2015, Sheehan was arrested after he allegedly attempted to shoplift items from Belk at La Plaza Grande shopping center in the Villages. During that incident, Sheehan allegedly attempted to conceal nearly $200 of merchandise in a Belk bag and found to have a wire cutter with him, presumably to remove the anti-shopping tags. At the end of December 2015, Sheehan pleaded no contest to a charge of petty larceny and was sentenced to 180 days in the Lake County Jail. Well, let's see what our friendly neighbors at Stonecrest are doing. A resident in the Stonecrest community allegedly attacked a gate guard who refused entry to his visitor. Joseph Mark Jerome Melanson, 72, is facing a felony charge of battery after the altercation with a 79-year-old guard at the 55-plus community in Summerfield. The visitor showed up at the entrance gate and said he was there to visit Melanson, according to the rescue report of Marion County Sheriff's Office. However, the visitor information did not accurately match the information Melanson had provided for the guest list. Melanson showed up at the gate and confronted the guard. Melanson, who stands 6 feet 2 inches and weighs 300 pounds, became aggressive, cornered the guard, and used his finger to poke the guard's chest. Ooh, that's a no-no. The guard warned Melanson not to touch him. The next time I touch you, your ass will be on the ground, Melanson told him. That's a threat. The incident was captured on video surveillance. When he was interviewed by the deputy, Melanson said he had tapped the name tag on the guard. Melanson was taken into custody on Thursday and booked at the Marion County Jail, where he was initially held without bond. I don't want to say anything. Does this guy look familiar? Have we reported this guy before? I'm not sure. Looks familiar. Maybe not. Good luck, Stonecrest. Okay, I'm going to try to group a lot of this stuff together, the DUI stories and the out-of-compliance homes stories. I'm going to try to group them all together. So let's start with the out-of-compliance homes. Here's another enabler. A grandmother vowed to address an ongoing problem at her granddaughter's home in Middleton. Diane Hickey pleaded her case Monday afternoon during a public hearing before Special Master Terry Neal at the district office at Brownwood. A complaint about dead and missing grass was lodged with community standards regarding the home at 7547 Chaston Circle in Middleton, the family community located near the village's charter school campus, a retirement community with a school. Hickey, who sells real estate locally, brought receipts from Dean's and True Green companies that have been hired to address the problem with the lawn at the home that Hickey owns jointly with her granddaughter, Jamie Eskovitz, who works as a nurse in the villages. Hickey said the lawn service companies have been unsuccessful at reviving the lawn. I just want to be in compliance, Hickey told the special master. However, she pleaded for 45 days to bring the property back into compliance. Community Standards has recommended that she be granted 30 days. Grandma wants to make things right, Hickey said. She was granted the extra time, but will face fines if the lawn is not brought into compliance within 45 days. A villager has been given 1 month to solve a problem regarding missing grass at his home. The home of Carlos Garcia at 2015 Cipriano Place in the village of Santo Domingo was the subject of public hearing Friday before Community Development District 2 Board of Supervisors at Savannah Center. A complaint was received April 14th by Community Standards about missing grass and trash at the home. When Community Standards spoke to Garcia, he said the home had recently been stuccoed and the trash would be removed. He removed the trash and planted grass seed, which did not work. Garcia, who purchased the home in 2024 for $254,900, has been ordered to correct the problem with the missing grass within 30 days. If he fails to do so, he'll be fined $150, followed by daily fines of $50 until the home is brought back into compliance. A villager has struck out in her bid to replace rock from
Florida's friendliest landscaping
at her home. The home of Rosalind Lind at 5850 Church Street in the village of St. Catherine was the subject of a public hearing this week in front of the special master at the district government office at Brownwood. Lind purchased the home in 2021 for $663,800. A complaint was lodged on May 14th with Community Standards regarding grass that had been removed at the home and replaced with rock. An investigation determined that the landscaping extended beyond the property line to the street. The application information that had been submitted to the Architectural Review Committee, the rock would extend only to the property line. Community Center sent Lynn 2 letters in June and a certified letter in July. Despite the correspondence, she failed to bring the property into compliance. Thus, she was called before the special master in a public hearing. Lynn made a last-ditch attempt to persuade Special Master Terry Neal to allow her to put down Florida-friendly landscaping. However, a representative of the community center said that would not be permissible. Lynn waved a copy of the Village's Son's Home and Garden section before the Special Master. The article was about Florida-friendly landscaping at a home in the village of Finney. Lynn questioned why the landscaping, which had received the newspaper's praise, wasn't acceptable at her home in the village of St. Catherine. In the end, she was ordered to bring her property back into compliance with the ARC application or return it to the original construction. If she fails to do so, she will face an initial $150 fine and $50 daily fines until her property is brought back into compliance. I keep saying over and over and over again, and I'm going to quit repeating myself because people get frustrated. My longtime viewers are getting frustrated with me saying these things over again. Don't mess with ARC. They will not take this thing lightly. If your plan that was approved by ARC, you better follow it. And if your property line, wherever it is, and it's supposed to stop there, does not include going down to the street, because that's an area which there's probably piping, electrical works, whatever, and you're not allowed to be there. So you have to go back to the property line. They're not telling you to remove it. They're just saying put it back to the property line and then replace the grass. Villagers spoke out at a public hearing on Monday about their neighbor's over-the-top yard. The home at 4540 Pearlman Way in the village of DeLuna was the subject of a public hearing before the special hearing officer at the district office of Brownwood. The home is owned by Stephen Walls and Debbie Gammon, who purchased the property in 2020 for $389,400. Neighbors said the couple brought in 6 dump truck loads of dirt to raise up the property. While they submitted a plan to the Architectural Review Committee, the couple greatly deviated from the plan by installing a putting green and a fountain that are far larger than what was indicated in the plan. There is also an unauthorized buried 500-gallon tank with elaborate underground piping. In addition, there are big, bountiful plants right up near the rear wall and within inches of their neighbor's property. All of this has prompted flooding on their neighbor's property, suspicious chemicals draining into their nearby pond, and a lot of hard feelings. And more planting are being added. It just grows and grows and grows. Neighbor John Durferiando, I can't even pronounce that name, testified at the hearing. This entire project has gone completely awry. It just grows and grows and grows. Neighbor John testified at the hearing. The entire project has gone completely awry. He said he is concerned that with hurricane season nearing its peak, the unruly materials in the neighbor's yard and the documented flooding problems could be downright dangerous. So there is an urgency to get this resolved. Neighbor Leslie Breimer echoed his testimony. This has been a frustration for quite some time. They don't maintain the property. They don't mow the property. There is just constant planting that is going on. Her husband called the property a train wreck. Special Master Terry Neal was sympathetic to the neighbor's pleas for help. The property owner did not attend the public hearing. Community standards had recommended giving the property owners 45 days to come into compliance. However, Neal opted to accelerate the process by ordering the homeowner to bring the home into compliance within 10 days. That ain't going to work. There is little chance that the homeowner will ever meet that timeline, but it is hoped that the order of enforcement will get their attention and spur them into action as fines begin to pile up. I would like to know what's buried into the ground in that 500-gallon tank. Well, here's another complaint about rocks. A villager has been ordered to remove rock at her home, which has been out of compliance since 2017. The home owned by Glenda Banta at 8209 Southeast 169th Alawenia Loop in the Mary Oak Villas in the village of Calumet Grove was the subject in a deed compliance hearing this week before a special master at the district government office in Brownwood. In 2017, Banta's home was found to be non-compliant due to the rock landscaping. In response, Banta filed an application with the Architectural Review Committee with a plan to remedy the situation. However, the required work was never carried out, according to the testimony presented at the hearing by Community Standards. A complaint was lodged this past May 19, prompting Community Standards to, it was determined that Banta had never followed through on the plan in her ARC application. During the hearing, Banta limped to the podium and complained about recent foot surgery. What's that got to do with removing the rock? You're not going to remove that rock anyway. You're just going to hire somebody to do it. You know you are. And you've had 7 years to get this done. Due to her health concerns, she was granted 45 days to bring the property into compliance. Her neighbor, Bernita Bence of 8245 Southeast 169th Polonio Loop, was also called before the special master for rogue landscaping at her villa. A complaint about her property was also lodged on May 19. Community Standards investigated the complaint and found Bence's lush landscaping and rocks had been put down without approval of the Architectural Review Committee. She was also ordered to bring her property into compliance within 45 days. It was noted at the hearing that Bence had filed an application with the ARC that very day. Okay, let's get to the DUI stories. A blood test is pending in the wake of a head-on collision this past week on a bridge in the Villages. The release of an accident report by the Florida Highway Patrol is shedding light on the crash, which occurred at 5:20 p.m. on July 29 on the Morris Boulevard Bridge at Lake Sumter Landing. A 39-year-old man from the village of St. James was driving a gray 2018 Honda CR-V utility vehicle southbound in the northbound lane of Morse Boulevard when his vehicle collided head-on with a 2024 Chevy Equinox, according to a report. The driver from the village was flown by helicopter to Ocala Regional Medical Center. That's where the trauma center is. While he was being treated at the medical facility, a blood sample was taken, and he was suspected of driving under the influence. The test results are pending. Well, I guess we're still waiting. I thought that was going to be the result. A villager was busted on a drunk driving charge after drinking at Red Sauce and then driving her car through a golf cart tunnel. Oh, God. Teresa Marie Calise, 71, of the village of Tamarind Grove, was at the wheel of a black Volkswagen at about 10 p.m. Friday when her vehicle was spotted on the golf cart path along County Road 466A, according to a arrest report of Sumter County Sheriff's Office. The Minnesota native told a deputy she was heading home. The front bumper of her vehicle had minor damage. It appeared she had been drinking. Calise admitted she had consumed 2 Cosmopolitans and 2 Express Martinis at Red Sauce at Lake Sumter Landing. She could not recall how she had gotten onto the golf cart path, but she had felt a crash-like sensation. A witness said Colley had driven her vehicle into the golf cart tunnel under County Road 466A near Sumter Senior Living. The witness said the car was damaged when entering the tunnel. Khalid declined to take part in the field sobriety exercise. She had provided breath samples that registered .144 and .150 blood alcohol content. She was booked at Sumter County Detention Center and released after posting a $1,000 bond. A
New York
snowbird has been sentenced in the wake of a drunk driving arrest in the Villages. Christopher Dover, 63, who at the time of his arrest listed an address in the Villages of Fenney, pleaded no contest this past week in Sumter County Court to a charge of driving under the influence. He will lose his driver's license for 6 months, had been placed on probation for 1 year, and was ordered to perform 50 hours of community service. A villager who crashed his golf cart on New Year's Eve has lost his driver's license for 6 months. Stephen Michael Strachan, 74, who lives in the St. Simon's Villas in the village of Bel Air, pleaded no contest this past week in Sumter County Court on a charge of driving under the influence. In addition to the loss of his license, he has been placed on probation for 1 year in order to perform 80 hours of community service. He crashed his golf cart at about 4:30 p.m. New Year's Eve near the gate at Buena Vista Boulevard and Pinellas Place, according to the arrest report of Sumter County Police Office. When the first deputy arrived on the scene, Stashman was still seated in his golf cart with the key in the ignition. He became somewhat verbally abusive and agitated with the deputy, who removed the key from the ignition. The deputy suspected that Strachan had been driving impaired. A second deputy arrived on the scene and invited Steckman to take part in the field sobriety exercises. He was very unsteady on his feet. He was asked if any conditions that would interfere with his taking part in the field sobriety exercise. He responded he was just old. He could not keep his balance and would not listen to instructions. He initially refused to provide breath samples. He relented and provided a sample that registered later at 0.138 blood alcohol content. Okay, let's go to everybody's favorite, letters to the editor. There was no reported holes in ones of golf this week. To the editor. Discussions on solutions is long overdue. Access to residents, owners, and authorized guests continues to get more difficult. There must be more effective means to control access. This has become a serious issue. That's sent in by Vince Scotty from the village of Sunset Point. Thanks, Vince. To the editor. I have been here full-time since 1992, and oh my, what changes. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Years ago, we had full-time monitors, but today, it would make more sense to have gate passes. What we can't avoid is those climbing over to use the facilities. No matter what they choose, something has to be done. We all are paying for the recreation areas that are being overrun by outsiders. Please help. The facilities are already crowded with just us residents using them. That's sent in by Rosalie Class from the village of Hacienda. Thanks, Rosalie. To the editor, I think it is time to upgrade access passes to gates and especially amenities in the villages. The amount of apartments, rental housing, and low-cost homes already built and continue to be built on the outskirts of the villages is staggering. It is. There is no doubt, with that many outside residents, the temptation to use our amenities will be strong. Without proper barriers to enter, we stand the risk of having our activities overcrowded and taking on additional wear and tear with no financial burden to outsiders. I am also concerned with overcrowding at the squares. I realize these are all open to the public, and that is how retailers and restaurants in the squares need it to be. However, it is very inconceivable to see a time when non-villagers outnumber residents. Perhaps some smart merchant might restart a Katie Bells type venue for residents only. That's sent in by Tom Ruman from the village of Dunedin. Tom, they've already done away with Katie Bells. That was the developer's idea, nobody else's. We didn't vote on it. He didn't give us a chance. They just done it. So, considering that the developer owns every building in every square, I don't think you're ever going to see one. Okay, I think that's going to be the news for this week. As always, I dedicate my news to all my Patreon members and my YouTube members. And I thank each and every one of them. If you'd like to be a Patreon member, we really would appreciate it. Everybody here would appreciate it. Right here. If I could get you to go down and become a Patreon member, I would really appreciate it. And Patreon, what I promise you is there, you'll get a Discord link. It's a members-only Discord link. And then you'll also get invited to special things that we do on Discord and on Patreon that others don't know about. And you'll get everything that I do put on there commercial-free. There's absolutely no commercials on anything that's on the YouTube members or on Patreon members. And I'm not sure if there's anything else we give you on there or not, but we do the best we can do to give you your money's worth, what you think it's worth. Plus, you get these videos, and you get them early. The news on Patreon, this news right here, they got it on Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. YouTube gets it Friday, 6 o'clock in the evening with commercials, and Patreon does not. So, it helps the channel out. We appreciate it. So I thank you if you can afford it. If not, don't worry about it. But if you can afford a couple bucks a month, we really appreciate it. So with that being said, I'm going to get out of here and saying, be well, stay safe, take care, be aware, and as always,
don't leave that key in that golf cart.
This week's news is brought to you by my YouTube and Patreon members.